I haven't really done a lot just yet, or as much as I wanted to so far, because like I've been working on a whole bunch of other projects too, and
Yeah.
so also this is the title that I think that I want to do, living, surviving, or neither. Um,
Okay.
then have the subtitle, a message from Chief Seattle, something like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is, like I was suggesting that if you say a message from Chief Seattle, then you also need to say a message from who your other authors are.
Okay.
So,
So
in other words, yes, we're using Chief Seattle's words as maybe the foundation,
mhm,
but your book has input from several authors. Therefore, the title of the book needs to be about whatever this bigger connection is between Seattle and the other authors. If
okay.
that's, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing
So
is,
it doesn't necessarily have to have a message from Chief Seattle in the title.
no,
Okay. All right. Okay.
but it does need to. So you have a inviting, provocative kind of title right now. So
Right.
that means we need what I've been calling a practical, or maybe objective is a better word, about what this book is about. So let's
Okay.
say it's living, surviving, and honestly, I don't think you need either or neither.
Okay.
But at any rate, it's a provocative, inviting title. So we have that. Now we have to have a subtitle that tells us what this is about. Let's say it's about environmentalism or
Okay.
climate change or something like that. So then that word needs to be in the subtitle. And then you kind of figure out how you want to say that. So it could be a living, surviving, or neither, a important words about or important words about environmentalism.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and then you just need to have some to make it be that, because right now our environment is really, that topic is almost as broad as the title itself. And so if the title itself is broad and provocative in that, then the subtitle needs to be not only objective and more clear about what this is, but it's a narrower focus as well.
So like our environment today.
Yeah, well, it could be that, but it also needs to be, well, this is, I mean, spell it out. This is a book, or these are words, or
Oh, okay.
these are messages, that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Messages.
it's kind of a picky thing, but it's that balance between the two that we're talking about here.
Oh, I understand. I mean, because like words are kind of like one of the biggest things I struggle with. So
Oh,
yeah.
I think we, if you're primarily a visual person, then that's how we've learned mostly to understand the world,
Right.
create things, and so that by default, then words kind of take a second place. But it is, and that's why, you know, I'm having us do a little bit of writing here on almost all our projects. I have us do a little bit of writing for
Right.
kind of that reason to keep that part going when we can see it applied in what we're most interested in. Sometimes we're learning about writing and it has, one of the reasons it can be difficult is if I don't see any connection between what I'm doing in that writing class and what I want to be out there doing graphic design, let's say. And so and the other part is I was saying that graphic designers are increasingly being asked to do more copywriting anyway.
Right.
So yeah, it's an odd thing, but it's good.
All right. Well, I'll work on the subtitles some more. So for the rest of it, this is pretty much my layout for the story and for like the responses to Chief Seattle.
Okay, back up one sec. So I saw a page there of introduction. So this is a one-page introduction, right? Correct?
Right.
Okay, so then what you currently have on the next page, page 4, that's the beginning of the book.
Right.
Okay, that needs to begin on the right-hand side.
Okay.
So if these are threaded, then you can just push it down and everything will push over. But because you have, I'm not sure. Like, are all Seattle's words paragraph? Are they threaded?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So you'll just have to move them all then.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when we have a layout that is a good layout, and I think you're doing fine here, but it's not, let's say, the traditional, the whole page on each one, or columns on each page that's filled that way. Even if they were threaded, those text boxes are probably different sizes, and then everything that's supposed to be there doesn't fit and line up anyway. So you kind of have to do it one by one.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess I should say again, the whole point of this is, well, like the introduction is beginning on a right-hand or odd numbered page, right?
Right.
Okay, so then everything else also begins over there. The story itself, the colophon, whatever other kinds of your other stories. Then as soon as it's a new kind of group or new, then it begins on the right-hand side.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll change that.
Okay.
But yeah, so far this is basically what I have: Chief Seattle and the responses. I still have to do the about Chief Seattle and about the authors, or like about the articles. Um, since I'm taking chunks from different articles, and
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. So did you tell me they were all from the same source or
different sources.
different sources? Okay. Are they all the same kind of sources, like all news sources, for example?
For the most part, most of them are.
If there's something like, you're looking for the common connection.
Right.
Like they're, before the first, and they go on different levels. So the first would be, is it all written by the same person? No. Were they all submitted to the same place? No. Were they all the same kinds of places? So it's getting more and more general, and until we find that one that is common. And if they're all news sources, then you can say, that's how you credit. Okay. The trick is, on the one hand, you're crediting an individual in Chief Seattle, and then to keep a parallel construction consistency, then we would need something. Yeah, and we're trying to list both a single individual and something a real broad, a category of news sources. So that makes this parallel construction difficult, because you can't say by Chief Seattle and say by ABC news sources or something. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. But you could say something like, as written by Chief Seattle, we'll try this. As written by Chief Seattle, and the other one be as written by ABC News contributors. That would be a parallel construction. Does that make sense there, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. So you find out what that common thing is. And I guess, so why did I go there? About what's we weren't talking about on the title page, but that is what's on the title page and on the cover. I don't know why I started going there, though. Was there another? I guess the other thing I should say to you is, based on what you showed me yesterday and in here, I think you're doing fine. I think this is going in a good direction. You're looking for consistency. It looks to me like you're using styles correctly. It's hard for me to judge the grid on the screen. So I guess maybe I should just remind you here, if you've been working intuitively, now is the time to be working with that grid. Are you saying you do have the grid right now?
Not right now. I'm going to do the grid after.
Okay. All right. So then these are just, let me just say them, and then you can tell me if you need more information there. So as you go to the grid, of course, you're first of all finding the leading of, I believe, well, it looks like, do you have same leading on both?
I do. They should be.
Oh, well, that makes things easy. So whatever that letting is, make it sure it's a whole even number.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and then make sure that, I think you could open the tracking, especially on the Chief Seattle voice. And I think the other voices might also benefit from it. So just open their paragraph styles and open the tracking by 5. And we've got the letting, so then we've got the grid made according to that letting. And then you might right off the bat, where it says subdivisions in the document grid, in there put in 2, because you may need that half step part of the grid here. And you might as well set it up first, and if you don't need it, then it's not a big deal. Does that part make sense about where to do that?
You said go to document grid and so.
Yeah, in the document grid,
Right.
and then make the subdivisions 2.
Okay.
Okay, and of course you're doing the grid according to the letting, whatever that number is. So then you've got that grid. Then you should do the columns and the margins. Okay, and remember how, well, once you set it up then you'll have to fine tune it so that the grid and the columns fall right on top of each other, because most of the time the columns, by just putting in the margin space and as it is, or even under the Fibonacci number series, it probably won't line up on your grid exactly first time around. So then you have to go back into the margins and just, tweak it by 1 point at a time till it hits. We did that, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then we got that going, and of course the margins, and then the gutter spaces. Also, the easiest thing on the gutter spaces is normally just make it the same as the letting, unless you've got a lot of letting. But usually that works out great. So then everything will be in there that you can tweak the size and placement of your text. So that'll be good. And then so then the next thing is the folio. So the folio typeface is an opportunity here to make it, well, you kind of have 3 typefaces, or you could. Actually, you need to. Sorry, I have to take that back. Because the display type can't be the same as the typeface you've used for Seattle or the other, because you're picking a typeface for the purpose of representing a different person.
Right.
Okay, so that means you can't use that typeface for the folio or any of the display information, because that stuff is supposed to be kind of neutral.
Right.
Okay, so I guess what I'm suggesting there is that whatever you pick for the title text and the display, which in this case is mostly the title of the book, you might have, I suppose, some chapter section titles in there, but it's that stuff. And then I'm also suggesting use the folio in the same typeface.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's very common on any book where it's mostly words is distinguishing the folio information from the story. So you can, it might be the fact that by changing that to the display type on the page numbers, that's enough that we obviously won't be, it won't be too similar, I guess, to the text that's up above in the story. On the other hand, another thing that you can typically do is do some version of glyph or dingbat on either side of it, or dashes on either side of it, or a box around it, or something like that that distinguishes it a little bit more visually from the story. Okay, so I think those steps should be good ones for you to get to the next point. I purposely just kind of talked through them. I didn't demonstrate. We have done that in the past. So if you remember that, and these are just reminders, that's great. Yeah?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Then is there something else here that you wanted me to take a look at on yours?
Mm, not yet. No.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. I think this is working good, Gavin. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Also, are you going to record class today or no? Oh, never mind. You're already recording.
Yes, I got you. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So Gavin and I just started a little bit, and I'm not exactly sure when everyone joined, but so we were just looking at his there at first, and let me do one thing here. Yeah, I think what I'd like to do today, well, I haven't done it for a bit. I was going to break you up into pairs, and then I was going to pop in with you. And I'd like to do that, but before I do that, I want to see if anybody, and then I'm going to, visit with each of you as well. But before I do that, I want to know if there's anything you'd like me to answer before I do break you up a little bit.
I do have a question, actually.
Sure. Okay.
Do you have crazy hair today, or do you just like the hat?
Very good. Now, I wouldn't have expected that one from you. I think Mackenzie would have probably been my vote for asking that question. Most likely. At any rate, it's a little both. Yeah. Yeah. I yesterday, I'd been trying to get one spot here at home to be doing this business. So trying to create a television studio in your house for constant all day long versions is not an easy thing, especially if you wanted to get fairly consistent audio and okay video. And yesterday I thought I had it nailed down, and then it seemed like the audio was knocking out. So I went up to school and got a long Ethernet cord, and I've strung an Ethernet cord now outside. So I'm in my little studio outside, and you can let me know if the audio is being consistent, but I think that I have a decent connection here now. So at any rate, this is a long-winded story of telling you that why I have crazy hair, yes, but I'm also missing baseball. So yeah, a little both. Any other probing question before we break up into little groups? Okay, so let me see if I can make that happen here. Okay, I'm going to see if that'll go. And all right, if this goes, I'll see you each in a minute or two.
I've just had other things.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
I feel like you always pop into my group. Is that just an actual thing, or is it randomized? Because we're group 3.
It's a random deal. It's funny though.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Sure. So I didn't give you a bunch of prompts here, but I figured you know each other well enough to get something started. So once you guys go ahead and let me just respond if I need to. Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just getting my little dummy that I started making. Cut out everything. The window that I have here is horrible, so it's going to be slanted.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I've been making notes to myself about this because when I started doing it, it was, seeing it on screen versus in your hand. Plus, because I wanted it to be a flip book,
Mm-hmm.
holding it and getting the dimensions right, especially when it comes to the margin. do it for you guys. That'd be so cool.
Okay.
No, this is not gonna work.
Oh, looks
Oh.
nice.
Kind of. Anyways,
Yeah.
I have I animated it to make sure that it actually looks right. That's what I've got. I don't know what else to really share. Yeah.
So Taylor, what do you think here?
I like it. I like the illustrations done.
I can share it with you.
I know it's like an animation. So is it a moving? It looked like a flower. So was it like a growing? Does it grow over time or does it like die over time? Because I saw like different.
Yeah. So yes, actually, to both of yours. It does. It grows up first. I'm trying to set it up right now. My screen. Yes, I can. Oop. That's my things being weird. That's great. Why is it doing this? This did this to me yesterday too. It's not going in the proper presentation mode. But yeah, so it does start to blossom. It should just GIF that I made. Starts to blossom and then starts to decay as well until it is one. Had to make sure there were enough frames, so I had to do some math on that. Until there's like nothing there. And then like just, the blurb stuff, but
Okay. That looks
I'll find the
nice.
other thing.
Any other thoughts there, Taylor?
It looks really nice. I like the animation, how it goes both ways of growing and dying, because it shows the earth and like what it was meant to have and then what's happened to it over time due to us. A good representation.
Yeah. I think the concept there is a really good one. I like the idea of adding some kind of interactivity to this. So one thing to make that work, the binding is important, right? So are you going to do some kind of side stitch binding, Japanese stab binding, or what are you thinking?
It's gonna have to be something that's tighter, like almost. I'm like, I can't turn it in with binder clips because that's just like a low quality. That's a quarantine book right here. So yeah, it's gonna have to be something like that. I haven't looked into that specifically, but I do have a lot of notes.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have to look into it far enough to know how to do it. What you have to do is look at the varieties and see how much space is required to do it, margin space. The other thing is, since it's a flip book, when you grab it yourself to make it flip, that's a real good indication of how much inner margin you need to hold it, flip it with your other hand. So, because you don't want to have to hold it all the way in so far that the pages are now getting used to folding in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one little thing. And you're on the right track of discovering that totally on your own when you made a dummy. So the more you do that with the actual object, the more it will inform what you do with the thing on the screen. In this case, we're talking about the space that's necessary on the inside margin. Okay. Let's see. Since we're talking mostly about the illustrations, when it grows to maturity, it seemed like some of those images got too close to the top. So if you want to get them large enough that they grow beyond the dimension of the page, that's fine. It can imply that it's gotten so big, it's grown so tall, so strong, that business, that it's beyond the capability of the page to show us the whole thing. That's fine. But right now it seemed like it came up and just kind of touched it, so it's an awkward position for it to stop.
Okay.
So either have its total height go up a little bit into that top margin, but maybe not that much, or have it really go for it and go off one by one.
Okay. So all or nothing.
Okay, there were, and there are two, because as you flip through them, I couldn't catch them real quick. And you may not have gotten to these yet. I totally understand that. But I believe there's a couple orphans in there. Or what,
Oh yeah, no, I haven't done like the arrangement of.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay,
Okay.
and then on the, I think you called it the resource page.
Yeah.
Okay, can you share and go to that page again for us?
Mhm.
Okay. So,
Okay.
so as an example here of treating different kinds of information differently. Okay, so we have a couple different things here. It is like, yeah, it's very similar to like if you were doing a bibliography, you know, there are strict rules for what you're supposed to do to the different things in there,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, and okay, so it's a similar kind of thing here, but the rule stops at you just have to do something differently. In the citations in a formal research paper bibliography, what you do to it is specific. In other words, you have to make this section bold, and you have to do these things in italics. So that's if we're doing that strict bibliography for research. Okay. When we're doing it as a resource or colophon production notes kind of thing, then we can make those changes with a variety of choices. We just have to treat different information differently. So that's the part that's the same, but it's more broad in what we choose to treat differently here. So why would I change something? So like there where it says the name of the book, so poem or the name of the speech, the poem is the name of one. Brother Eagle, Sister Sky is the name of one. The Beautiful World Beside the Broken One is the name of one. So those three things, you decide what style or convention you choose to use to make the visual treatment of the title. Okay. Then the same thing is true with if there's a website. So there's two websites there, and those are also different kinds of information. So they might, you know, we might change weight, we might be italicized, it might, you know, so that's the kind of thing. And I wanted to pick this page to do it because it's the one that, even though there's not that much text on it, almost every other line is something different. So, you know, it's not quite that bad, but it's a lot of variety within this small amount of words, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so the key is, well, yes, on the one hand, I have to treat different things differently. And on the other hand, so that's creating variety. And on the other hand, I have to create unity among the groups of that information. So the kind of paragraphing or greater letting helps that. But there might be, but the other one is, it usually means, well, we're not using a bunch of different typefaces, we're using different font treatments of the same typeface. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you'd get there all on your own, but I needed to point it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna pop out and then probably back in, just to see yours as well, Taylor. Okay. Unless you have a question for me right now while I'm still here.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So I'll come back.
Okay.
Okay.
It's like my cover thing, so I have that, but it's like, just, this is like a rough idea, it's not even there yet. So that kind of goes with the way this was laid out too. But hi, Professor.
Hello, hello. I'm just a fly on the wall.
Yeah. So I'm still in the same spot because I've been working on graphic design project, because that's due tomorrow for critique, and then it's due on Monday. So I'm still in the same spot. I still have to, but I got like a list going here.
Good.
I have like my line length and point size to still change, put in the baseline grid and that kind of stuff. So I'm still in the same boat, but I have a list.
That's good.
So I got a list of what I need to do, and I'm still trying to work on it. But
Okay, I see, and again, you may not have gotten to this yet, but I want to point out what I see, okay? So go back to the previous spread.
that one,
Where did I see it?
right here.
We can, no. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, the orphans, widows, that kind of thing, you're going to get that.
That I haven't gotten to yet, and I was gonna work on that after I determine what my point size is gonna be for this, because we talked about the line length
Yeah.
and how that needed to change and the baseline grid. And then I also have to figure out the letting and stuff. So once I do that, then I was gonna go back and look at all the widows and all that stuff, because I do have a widow right here, I know.
Yeah, and I know you're going to get that, and then and we'd already talked about then getting the grid going so you can put on the grid. So
Yeah.
we'll do that. I saw something else though. I thought it was just the previous spread. Oh, here, let's look at this one for a sec. So remember Gavin's yesterday? He was showing me his project, I think from
another class, yeah.
Production maybe, and we
Yeah.
moved the paragraph on the other side, so it was the first line was even with the
Yes, so that right here.
Yeah. So if you pull the middle handle, yeah, pull that down.
Down to there.
Not quite that far,
Yeah.
but a little higher up. One more line, I think.
So it lines up with the other page.
Yes.
Yeah, so it lines up with that one. The only thing is that by doing that, oh wait, no, it's still fine. I think it's still fine, right?
Well, there's one other issue here. And of course, because history and consequences is a new area of information. So that needs to begin on the right-hand page. So there would be a blank page between.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this kind of the situation and the way we're looking at it, there's a reason for that, but that's not what's going to happen here, because that history and consequences is going to move to the right.
Yeah, it's going to move over here.
Yeah. Okay, so is it threaded? Can you just pull the window thing down?
Can I pull this window down or this one?
That window up.
With this one?
No, just pull the bottom middle handle.
Pull it up?
All the way up. And all the way. So it disappears.
So it disappears.
There you go. So now it's moved over to the right-hand page.
Okay. So I'll just have to add another. I'll have to add another page in here because I don't want that part to begin over here.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's exactly it. Then you start looking at the rhythm. Get those other parts with the grid and letting first, and then go to what you were just saying. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like it changes the way
Yes.
If I change the letting and the point size, it's gonna change like where things fall. So it pretty much I feel like I'm like going back and like redoing things if I do too much to it before I change that stuff.
Exactly, and always go from the front of the book to the back. Seems like
I still don't have anything, of course, in there.
Yeah. No,
and I'm gonna make match this. I just haven't totally changed it yet over here, but
okay. And then if necessary to get the right comparison left to right pages, that may be where you insert a page and put an illustration.
Yeah.
It could also be a pull quote.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And I guess the other thing is, in the other class yesterday, we were talking about like sections. You kind of have sections here when you have the history and consequences. So you can add other similar kinds of things that currently don't have these section or chapter title. You can do that in other places with Seattle's if you want. because we're using those, we're completely redesigning it and we're combining them in the words in a variety of ways. So that.
So you're saying, because like there's a few places like in this area, like on this page where I only have my article stuff and I didn't put any of Seattle's words. So like I could put a pull quote in here that's Seattle's words.
There you go. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and I have to, because we had talked about my line length, so I know that like these are probably going to go over 3 columns now. So just little.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
There's changes still.
Okay. All right. I'm going to pop into another group and then I will be back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna stop sharing this.
Looks pretty good.
Do you think the table of contents should be bigger? I don't know. It's kind of small right now.
I'm thinking maybe it looks a little out of place. If
Okay.
you could probably put it on a separate page.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, we can see yours now. Oh, Professor's here.
Yeah. So how's the book coming?
It's coming good. We were just we screen shared each other's, and then we gave each other some feedback on kind of what we can do to keep it all consistent throughout, as far as treatment of photos goes, and kind of the typeface as well.
Yeah. Okay. And like you have, what's the title?
For mine, let's see. I'll screen share mine, and then we can go over mine.
Okay.
So I was telling Jasmine that for mine, my title page is kind of the end of the quote for the end of my book.
Yeah, I forgot. I just looked at this last night.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so I did, and I was telling her that instead of like a subtitle, I wanted to put like the photo of everyone that spoke there, like and throughout the book. So that's that, and then kind of the introduction page is just the Harrison Ford quote. And then I was telling Jasmine that I kind of just have this page black, but on the table of contents, I have all 4 of them again. So I was telling her if I should have, she recommended a picture of just Harrison Ford, since it's his quote, or just the photo of all 4 of them again.
Well, let's stay with your question first. So after the table of contents, what's the next page?
The next page is just the first chapter page.
And you begin with the
what Chief Seattle. Yeah, and I'm beginning with the pull quote.
And then turn to the next page after this one.
The next page after this is the beginning of Brother Eagles.
Okay, so there's maybe 2 things here.
Okay.
First of all, we want to talk about how you want to bind the book.
Yeah.
I think that there might be an issue here, but I'm unsure how you want to bind it. But the other is we have to have. Oh, I see how you're thinking of that. I think I know how you're going to answer. But so the story has to begin on a right-hand page, and I believe the way you're seeing it is that the Chief's bonnet and the one being that page, therefore it's a continuation on the next. Is that the way you're thinking of it?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the title page being on the right hand side. So,
and that's the title page, but
yeah,
it just says 1. How did you do?
And then the next title page is the same way. So, like this.
Yes. I think. I graphically, I really like the 1 and the bonnet there, but I think for it to really be a title page, we have to have the title on it.
Okay.
And then on the next page, you could repeat it. We have to look at that, but I think you definitely need it on this one.
Okay.
So finding that how that fits in here, I think you're going to find a nice way. You found a nice way to combine these with the way it currently is. It just isn't reading as the title page. It's reading more like a separator a little bit. And then I think that will work for you.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and tell me how, or you haven't necessarily decided on how you're binding it.
I was thinking more like a perfect bound, but
okay.
But yeah, that's usually what I go for. But I don't know, because it's like Chief Seattle and it's like about environment, if I should take a different route. But
well, go back to the front of the book again one more time. So I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, this was my other comment. I've been trying to think, well, what was the other one about the cover I had? So on the cover, you have a really good, inviting title.
Yeah.
But we need a subtitle.
Okay.
That is on the practical objective side.
Okay.
Okay, so that might mean that you move the title up a little bit to allow the subtitle. And then there's a hierarchy between. The subtitle shouldn't be the same. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you can balance that out. Yes, that was my other comment on the cover. The other comment that happens, and I am going to get back to answering your question about Harrison Ford. Printing this, are you thinking printing it black and gray, or are you printing black on gray paper?
I think that's a great question. Just because almost everything, like the photos, are gray.
Uh-huh.
I think that might be a better option. I think it might give kind of the white instead of a white. I think the gray would give it a nice touch, actually.
Well, I think it's worth trying.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I have some BFK, nice BFK gray, I think. I would have to take a look. But it's a cover stock. If I have it, then you're welcome to try it on that.
Okay.
So that's just one option.
Okay.
So then the typeface I'm a little unsure of, but I'm definitely unsure of the drop shadow on the type.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I don't use the drop shadow. The typeface is bold on there. And maybe it's how you use the subtitle.
Okay.
How that relates. So I think there's still a little bit there. Okay, so now I have a better sense again. So we come down here to Harrison Ford's quote.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And should there be, and so we go there, and then we go to the table of contents, right?
Yep.
I don't think you need a picture of Harrison Ford.
Okay.
It's if you had Harrison Ford there, then you would need a separate page for DiCaprio and I can't remember who the other guy.
Oh, Joaquin Phoenix and
Joaquin Phoenix, yeah. So, and there aren't those kind of, it's not that, you don't have that many pages here to do that. So I think you should leave all four of them right here.
Okay.
Unless you did Seattle because you don't start with a Seattle quote.
Yeah.
No, then I would leave it the way you currently have it.
Okay. And then I was also asking Jasmine, and it's just kind of giving me some feedback as well.
Yeah.
I was asking her, so on the back of every right page, I have a photo of whatever they're speaking about, kind of.
Yes.
So this is like kind of a tree without leaves in the back. And then this is the same thing because it's still Chief Seattle.
Uh-huh.
And then for DiCaprio, it's just like the dirt cracked up because of climate change.
Uh-huh.
So I was just asking her, can you really notice, or should I turn up the opacity? Because I think it's not very noticeable without me telling you or explaining it to you.
I think that's okay. That's the suggestion, and it's primarily about the words. The importance needs to be on the words. The more you bring the opacity of that image up, you're actually going to be making it harder to read. It's not going to make it impossible. I know that. But the whole, we want everything that you do, you want to be doing it to help the readability.
Okay.
And so I think keeping the opacity of this image low is a good thing. It's a suggestion. I don't have to know exactly what it is, but I do get the feeling I get a feeling about it, and that's what's important. That feeling is what helps us understand what the words are about. So I get a sense that it's natural, organic kinds of things. On some of them, I get more of a feeling like it's almost scary is the wrong word, but ominous.
Okay.
You know, and so, and of course, I haven't read everything that they have written about and that you've chosen to show here. So you may want some of that kind of feeling in there.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but I guess what I'm mostly saying is the feeling of that graphic behind it is way, way, way more important than us to know exactly what it is.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, let's see what.
And then the end, I can show the end, I guess.
Yeah.
So the end, I kind of just changed that, that I did it kind of, I wanted to end it with his, because that's what the title of the book, his quote.
Uh-huh.
So I just ended it like kind of on a peaceful note, peaceful follow.
Okay. And
for the end, I kind of just did it really quickly. I did the end, and then the author's note, I wrote it. So
yeah,
I kind of just wrote like just a little briefing of the whole thing, and then the call.
That's excellent. I don't think you should have the words "the end" on it.
Okay, so just take it out.
Take that off. The piece will follow. The piece will follow acts as that end.
Okay, perfect.
And then the author's note needs to be on a right-hand page. Colophon is on the right-hand page.
Okay, so both of them just on that same page?
Yeah. Now, and the exception to this, and we see this all the time, is depending upon what the total page count ends up being. So if you're doing perfect bound, then actually you should change these in away from a spread, and they should be non-facing pages, just single pages.
Yeah.
And then you're fine, as long as it's a right-hand page. You might need a blank page in between here to do that.
Okay.
If it were a signature bound book, then our total page count needs to be a multiple of 4.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's say that to get colophon and author's note each on their separate right-hand pages, that ends up giving us a page count that is not a multiple of 4. That would be a practical production reason for putting them across from each other like you currently have.
Okay.
Okay, so the goal is to make new information always on a right-hand page, but sometimes that needs to be modified a little bit because of the total page count. And you'll see it all the time. So if it's about a budget issue, they put them side by side. If they decide, no, I want to maintain the stylistic look throughout, and I put it over there, but it now generates 3 extra blank pages. So now I decide, do I want them all to occur at the back of the book, or can I spread them throughout the book and put an illustration there? So that's where all that stuff comes about.
Okay.
But you mentioned early on perfect bound book, which I think is the right way to go with what you have going. So the only difference then I would do is change your page layout so that you're seeing them as single pages.
Okay, and then non-facing pages, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. I need to bounce into one of the other groups, and then I'll probably be back here again. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Hello. So how are you guys doing?
Good.
Did you get through everything already without me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe since I saw Gavin's early on, Mariz, can I see yours?
Yeah. Let me. Oh wait. Oh no. Share. Okay. Let me go back.
Okay. Actually, you know what? While you're doing that, I'm going to move the other breakout rooms into groups of 4 because we're already at that place. Okay, and so we're going to move to
Are we like your last group?
and this one. Okay. So okay. I'm sorry, Mariska, go ahead. Go ahead and walk me through things.
Okay, so this is my half title page, and I still have to add. I forgot to add that saying it was edited by me, but this is what I have.
Okay.
And Gavin is saying, because I did this part in InDesign, and then I could round out my edges for this part.
Yeah, you can also change that profile of the line, you know, so it's not a mechanical line, especially since you're using serif letters up here that change from thick to thin.
Mm-hmm.
The line should change from thick to thin.
Oh yeah, I was trying to find that setting in InDesign, but I wasn't sure how to change my stroke to like an Illustrator, how it has that.
Excellent question. This is a perfect example of why we do some things in Illustrator, some things in Photoshop, and put it together in InDesign. So to do what we're talking about here, you could either create the wave only in Illustrator and place it in here as a graphic, which is what I kind of think you should do. But the other version would be to make the entire healing troubled water, and maybe even including a guide to preventing water pollution, make that whole thing in Illustrator as what we call a lockup, and import it all together as a graphic. And so that way, I tend to think is the better way to go.
Yeah.
And then as far as okay, so I'd make the whole thing using this as, I don't know, a guide for if you want, but then in Illustrator, just make the whole thing there. Then change it to outlines and place it here in InDesign.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
And then this is like the beginning of the Chief Seattle speech.
Okay.
And since this is the first line of his speech, I did it in the small caps and just broke it off in its own single page.
Okay. And how are you binding your book?
What's it? The Perfect Bound?
Okay, good, because you have single pages going, and so this is the right way to go. So this would, there's one thing, back up one page for me, please. Oh, you do have a blank page there. I missed it. Okay, so we're good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then we have this on the right-hand page.
Mm-hmm. And then this is
on the back of that page, piece of paper. Okay, all right, good.
And so this is how I try to differentiate like words from his ancestors.
Yeah.
Over a column.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thank you. And also the lighting for words said by his ancestors is tighter than words said by him. So I don't know, does that look
the point size, or which is different?
The lighting.
Yeah, it needs to be the same.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and this is a common problem. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to create a rule, a style that we can apply to everything that is of similar, I guess, a similar kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay. So if we're saying that these different voices are, no one voice is more important than another. My ancestor's voice is important, but it's not more important than my grandmother, and which is important, but not more than, any of the others. So in that sense, we need to treat them all equally. And so we create that style to make that happen. The difference here, or the difficulty, I guess, is that some of those things that the voice says is small and brief. Like my ancestor said to me, there's only 2 lines there. But but Grandma had a lot to say, so she's got a lot more. And when we go to the next page, wasn't that, was it the next one? The one that, where you had to change, at any rate, each of them need to be treated the same, but some of the lines are longer at the current rule. So what you have to do is find the one that works for the longest or most text, and then use that and apply it to the other ones.
So, wait, by that you mean so everything has to be like the longest line length?
Everything has to have the same amount of leading, the same point size, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But it's going to take up more space for one than it is the other. But that's just the way it is. It's because that's the same kind. It's the same kind of thing. They're all words being said by a different voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But if this is like, so I changed the leading because I was thinking of it like it being a different voice. Is that?
Do you mean, well, I want to make sure I'm following here. So the voice of my ancestors is one voice. The voice of my grandfather is another voice. The voice of my grandmother is a third different voice. And is there a fourth one? I was thinking there's a fourth voice.
I think it only says like my ancestors.
Okay, so it's just the three voices. Okay, so as long as the leading and is the same for all of those voices, then you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the leading. Like if you pick this typeface at this size, and I don't know if it's bold or regular for the voice itself, and then a different typeface or a different size of the same typeface for the actual words, those also needs to be the same treatment, leading, so forth, for all of the words, regardless of who says them.
Oh, okay. Okay, so, all right.
Okay. Now there's one. If you, I think it was. Where's the one where you really open the leading?
Over here.
Okay. So on this one, the exception to what I just got through describing would be if you want it to emphasize it more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you're drawing attention to it. It looks different. So it doesn't have this indentations. It has more leading. So so now you would do that for the special thing, or for the main point, or the main voice, you know. So like, for example, that part of this we know,
mm-hmm.
that's no longer just one voice, I don't believe. Or is it a continuation of what's right? What will happen when the buffalo are all slaughtered? Is that coming from Seattle himself, or is that coming from one of the other voices?
Yeah, this is all coming from Seattle. So when it's from Seattle, I have it all on the very left.
Okay, so that would be a reason then to treat it differently. That's why I wanted to make sure we went through this whole thing, because all of the other voices are kind of like his counselors. They're the other voices are what's bringing him to think the way he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we all do. We all are a product of our experiences. So Seattle is saying, this is why this is so important, because the people who have come before me have all told me these things and asked me these questions. So that's led me to believe these things. And so typographically, you give them a different treatment. And again, the reason it's different is because it's more special. It's a summation. It's the conclusion. It's that kind of thing. It's the result of the previous, understanding the previous words, the previous voices.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that would be the reason to treat it differently here. And you just need to have, and then the art part gets into, okay, is it enough different that it does translate as being done on purposefully and for a reason of that is because it's special or I want it to stand out. If that's not enough to make that evident, then it's a clue that you might do something else in addition to what you've already done to make it seem even a little bit more that way. On the other hand, you might say, oh yeah, there's enough difference there. In fact, I think it's too much of a contrast. Therefore, I need to back off on how different it is from the rest. So that's the game that you play now, finding that balance between the voices that are influences on Seattle from Seattle's thinking.
Yeah, because that's also what why I did this one, because this is also that top part is Seattle's words himself and not ancestors. But yeah, that's what I was thinking, if it's just not enough of a difference and it just looks confusing.
I don't, yes, actually, I wouldn't go so far as saying it's confusing yet, but that is a possible result. And you're asking the right question. Okay, so now if I want to make it seem even more different, what should I do? And so I'm going to give you a real dramatic example, and then maybe that'll open up some thoughts. So maybe I could do it by I have an image between or before Seattle starts his own ideas. So I have the other voices speaking, then I have a spot illustration, then I have Seattle. Okay, so that would be one way of doing it with an illustration or something that's in there, a dingbat, a glyph, something that separates. That would be one way. Another would be a change in color somehow, whether that color means gray or black or a hue. And that color could be applied on the just the heading of where Seattle's words. It could be the page with all of the text reversed out. So it's some version of color application that makes it different. Yeah. And let's see, a third one would be there's a change of typeface.
A completely different typeface.
Yep, that could happen too. Because of the way that you've laid it out, that sorry, I have to take that back. If we were only doing Seattle's words, you could do that. But you have Seattle's words and the words of your other source that you still have to consider. So we can't just arbitrarily change another typeface here. We could if we were only working with Seattle speech. Okay.
Yeah. I think if I made it like italicized for his words.
Could be. You can try that.
Yeah.
Okay. And make sure there's only a single space between sentences. It looks like there might be double space after the word here and a question mark. Are there double spaces there, or am I just imagining that? Right before the word will.
Oh, there might be, actually.
Yeah. So I just happened to see that. Okay. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to bring everybody back together, and then we can still talk about some individual things. And I didn't get to talk about everyone's individual anyway. Okay. So I'm going to try to bring us all back together.
All right.
Okay. So.
Brian.
I know what.
I got moved.
I moved you guys around.
I know. Jasmine was about to, and then it just.
I was giving him a suggestion, and then I got moved.
Oh, was it right in the middle of you talking?
Yes.
No, I felt it was time to play the chess master there somehow and move you guys around.
You were wondering.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, So have we got everybody? I think so. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So was there any point that you saw in someone else's or that you heard from somebody else that you felt was a really helpful comment and you'd want to share it with the rest of us?
I found the hyphenation thing thanks to Marie's.
Sorry, say that one more time for me.
The hyphenations, yeah, I found the whole hyphenations panel because like I've been changing the hyphenations in the paragraph styles thing, and it's been like really messy.
You can do it in both places. You can do it globally, which is through the preferences, and you can do it through a style, which would just control the look of that style. So you know both now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure everybody knows what we're talking about. We brought it up, I think, in other class, but there's a setting under preferences for a hyphenation and justification. And so again, it's a preference. So if you look in there, you can look at it right now if you want. And sometimes it's referred to just as H and J. Taylor? Oh, no? Mm-hmm. I thought your hand went up. Sometimes it's just called the H and J control panel, but it's hyphenation and justification. So maybe three things that panel will influence. The most obvious one are the number of hyphenated words that will be allowed within a paragraph. So when that number goes up, that means that if necessary, InDesign will force more words per line, creating a more even justified right-hand side. So all that sounds good. The downside is it will allow more hyphenated words to create that look. So as you make the hyphenations, allow more hyphenations, it means that the right-hand side will become more even. As you lower the number of allowable hyphenations, then now InDesign is saying, oh, don't create more than 2 hyphenations. So to make that happen, I'm going to return more words. Therefore, the right-hand side is more uneven. Does that make sense? So it's a trade-off, either uneven right-hand side with fewer hyphens or more even side, but the result will be more hyphenated words. Okay, so that H and J section can allow you to control that. Another point, tip, comment that you heard or saw? This wasn't helpful at all, huh? Come on. What else did you hear?
Well, I was gonna say I like the way Asia has she has a grid in there, but she just like turns it off so it's not visible, which I wish I would have done, because like even though I like putting it in there intuitively and then putting that in later, I kind of wish now that I just would have put it in there, just turn it off so I wouldn't see it, and it's like then turn it back on so that I wouldn't be like, oh man, I still have to go do that. So.
Oh, you mean making the grid earlier on, but just turning it off until you, and is that what you mean?
She's frozen. She's glitching.
Rip.
That's it.
Asia, was that what she meant? Because that you guys were talking about that one, right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. Weren't you and Hatsine together in your group?
Yeah.
Okay, and so what you did with your grid was to make it early on in the process. Yeah. And that.
Well, I figured out. At first, I figured out what leading I would want and like the general idea of it. So it forced me to keep that guide, but I might adjust it if I want to adjust it later on.
Yes, and
yeah.
and I hope I try to give you guys options, and sometimes the options are, well, which way do you want me to do it? Just tell me how to do it. And other time, but most of the time, my reason for giving you options is that a way that works for me or a way that works for somebody else may or may not be the best way for you. So that's my reasoning. She's back. Good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry.
So, okay. Well, do you want to finish your thought there?
I was saying something about, I don't even know what you guys heard because it just like knocked me out. So back on my iPad now. This keeps happening to me. So I was just saying that I don't have my my grid in there, and I wish I would have just like put it in there and then turned it off, and I could have it turned on because I think it would have saved me a little bit of a headache now. But and I saw that, you know, Asia was like, you know, has it in there, but she just like turned it off, like so she didn't see it and then like hit it or whatever. And I think that would have been like a time saver for me.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, and what I was just starting to say was some ways work better, or order of doing things works better for another. So I typically try to give you guys options, and and in doing so, it's for this reason that maybe one way that works fine for somebody just doesn't work as fine as a different way for somebody else. The downside of that is that for someone, some people don't like to learn that way. They want, no, just tell me how to do it, and then I'll do it that way. And then if I don't like it, I'll find something else. So I know that there are these two and probably more ways of especially learning something that has some technical, you know, startup to go. I know that. So I've just chosen to give the options. And I apologize for those of you that it might be confusing when I do that, but that's my reasoning. Okay, so maybe just to repeat, you can absolutely create a grid early on for what you think is going to work, so you've got it going, and then turn it off or on even when you're in the beginning stages, when you're kind of working intuitively. Yes, that is also an option. It's not like you have to do it at a particular step. My particular step, because I totally resisted using the grid for such a long time, and I was getting okay results, was then at some point I decided, well, let's see what this grid thing does, and I turned it on and saw that, oh, actually, if I just move what I've currently got going a little bit, that will be a use of the grid. But I got there pretty much in the same ballpark on my own. I have to use baseball analogy today because
I normally have it in there at the beginning and do that, and I didn't do it for this one. I just was like, oh, I can do it later. And
yeah, that's fine. So it's good that you saw that and how it can work. You know, how about any other comment, tip that you heard or gave?
I don't know if anybody else did it, but on Hot Scenes, she changed the opacity shift so that one dialogue or one source of text was lighter than the other, so that it was easier to distinguish the others. So I might implement that into mine because it was a good idea. So yeah,
it is. Yes, I totally agree. Changing the color of the ink, whether it means it's a lighter shade or a darker shade, is a good idea. I have to say, though, that it's going to be better for you in terms of the production side of things. So if we're in production class, then, and we should learn this anyway, is that it's going to be a better decision for you if you want a gray value to not use the opacity, but instead create a different value of a hue. And the reason is the way that the ink gets printed, even from our inkjet printers, but to a press. So it's either going to, if it's a tint, it's not putting down as much. There's more white dots showing in between the dots that are actually printed. So it's actually not as well defined a shape. Can't be, because it doesn't have as many dots there. But instead, if I want a light gray and pick a different hue, Now I'm printing dots in every spot, whether it's black or gray or green or red, but I'm getting a lighter color result. So the short answer on that one, try not to use transparency or opacity settings if you can help it, especially on shapes or type. How about another one? Okay, let me ask you this, and you can. I want you to each. I'm gonna give you some minutes, and I want you to write down one or two things that come to mind. Okay. So the first thing I want you to write down is, what is the purpose of this book that I'm creating? And I'm not looking for an answer that, well, it's because it's my assignment. I'm not looking for that kind of answer. And then I'm gonna ask it again in a slightly different way. What do you think the message is that's coming from your book? Slightly different question, but it's related. What do you think the message is that you are creating?
Are we answering it now, or?
Yeah, I want you to try to answer it now.
I'll go first then. So I think the purpose of the assignment,
I'm
gonna go first, or a little more time.
Sorry, Brian.
Time out.
I meant just write them down right now, and then I'm going to ask you. Yes, but let me give you, I think, two more questions. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. So you said what you think the purpose of the book is, and you've also said what you think the message from your book is. Now I want you to write down 4 or 5 typographic things, choices, decisions that you made to make that message more clear. So as an example of what I tried to say there is, well, I picked this typeface because it does something. And that thing helps the message I just wrote down.
You said 2 things?
Yeah, 3 or 4, I think. The number isn't that important here.
I just said 3 or 4.
Yeah. Now I know you're still thinking about this, but I do want to give you the last one, and that is, okay, I want you to vision ahead here, and you're holding the book. It's all printed. It's the object. It's the actual book now. What does it look like? What kind of paper is it made out of? How is it bound? How heavy is it? What size is it? Anything as descriptive, detailed as you can possibly think. What's that object going to look and feel like? Okay, I'm going to interrupt you there. So what I'd like to do is just go around and pick any one of those questions and tell me one of your answers to that question that you think will be most helpful to you going forward. Okay. Gavin, do you want to start us? I'm chess master again, though, so I'm going to pick you.
I think the message of my book is that like, how do I explain it? I can't really explain it, but I can explain it. Jesus Christ. Okay, so the message of my book is that like we're talking about how Chief Seattle is telling us to respect the earth, and then the responses are how we haven't been, and then as we get to where Chief Seattle is like telling us, well, his ancestors are telling us to like teach your children how to care for the earth as you have. It gets a little bit lighter, and it goes into like how we are beginning to realize that, you know, the choices we make to affect our environment also affects us, like affects our health and everything as well. And so it goes. So it's not like totally like just like we're really messing up. It's like, yeah, we're messing up, but at the same time, there's still hope for us to do better.
Nice. So, and so I'm taking that to mean that, okay, that helps me to clarify what is the purpose of this book. And obviously then the next step is, how do the decisions that I make as the designer and topographer help that message be more strongly communicated, right? Okay, good. I like your interpretation of it. That's nice. Maurice, how about, do you want to pick one out?
Yeah. Well, from what I wrote down for my purpose was, since I said it was like a guide, said to inform how to prevent water pollution, because from Seattle's words, they're like connected to the earth and the water. And to have a better future, we need to take care of both of those things.
Okay, so again, a really nice, purposeful reason for your book existing. So then go that next step and tell me, how does clarifying that, or having to write it down, how do you think that will help you going forward in designing their other design decisions?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think that you might do, or even?
Well, I think I need to clarify. Well, main thing I'm thinking about right now is like clarifying the voices in the dialogue still, to interpret that message. And yeah, I'm still gonna see how I can go about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes, and that's it. But I am having difficulty communicating what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking us to do is make a connection between these kinds of questions, maybe one of these specific questions, or these kinds of questions, making a connection between that and what you then decide to do. Why do I pick this typeface? Why do I pick this point size? Why do I pick this amount of leading, this kind of binding, this color paper? You know, that's what I want us to make that leap to, because we're envisioning it in the head. We haven't made those decisions yet, I don't think. Okay, Jasmine, how about you?
I think I'm gonna talk about like the binding. I'm thinking maybe like a hardcover sort of feel. And I just want it to be like a story, you know, like if you read it, maybe it could be for like a kid, they see it and it just feels like a book that they can read.
Okay, so you want that association with what we might call a traditional book, because I don't know,
I just feel like it would be like, I don't know how to explain it, but
keep going. We've got time here.
I guess you'd want to pick it up, I guess. You'd be willing to read it. from the feel of it, because it's about the environment issues, and so I just want to make it like, okay, oh, look at the feeling of this book. Let me see what's inside.
Okay. Yeah. So I am going to put some words in your mouth, because I do understand what you're saying. But we could also say it in a way as that, well, I want this book to have the association with what traditional books, because that makes it seem like it's more important. This is serious business here. This is not a little crafty thing that I put together. This takes on because of its visual treatment, it can make an association with something being more important. Our craftsmanship, our choices of design influence the message.
Yeah, I don't want it to really be floppy, because I feel like if it's hardcover, it's like, this is serious, this is professional, it's going to be taken more seriously than just a...
Yeah, it's that. And not to diss other kinds of binding or anything, that's not it. But that's the reason that you are saying that you want to go in a particular direction, to take advantage of that kind of association that is easily made, right? So yeah, good. Okay. Asia. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. I can't pick which one to say.
That's a good thing.
I'm just gonna piggyback off of Jasmine, because I was also thinking of a hardcover, and my reasoning was because like what she said, it feels more like real. And then I was also thinking, when people think of books, they relate it to paper, which relates it to trees, which relates it to nature. And then the purpose of my book was to bring more environmental awareness and like say, hey, you're hurting the planet, which is kind of really bad, so you should stop and think about what you're doing. So yeah, and then I'm also thinking of a hardcover because for some reason when I think of like hardcover books, I'm like, oh, they took the time to make, first of all, a whole book about this, and then make it a hardcover book, which I know costs more and like other stuff and takes a little bit more time to make. So it's like, it must be important because they took all this time. And then just because it's a hardcover book, people usually relate that to like textbooks and like things. So I'm like, oh, it's a reliable book. So hardcover book sounds nice.
Very good. You used a couple words that I really like, and I'm just going to pick on one of them here. That's more reliable because of its look, right? So we just tend to think of things, not just books, but all sorts of things, as either being more reliable, more safe, more fun, more formal, more informal, more dramatic, more comedic, more suitable for children, all of these different ways because of the look.
Yeah.
And one of them is its reliability. One of the things that I was absolutely blown away with, there was something that a graphic designer did a couple years ago now. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys, but I should. And that is, there was someone posed this question of whether or not there was a single typeface that would be perceived as more believable, truthful, and reliable than any other one. And it came out of a discussion, a graphic design discussion, as a little bit of a comment on this bigger issue of visual reliability. And that got narrowed down to, well, could just the choice of one typeface have an impact on believability? And they kind of, as a group, and these were all really, front row designers, and they said, I don't think so. I think you've got a couple different choices that could do that. But then one of them decided to experiment and see. And so he asked each of the designers in that group, well, which ones would you nominate as pretty reliable, believable typefaces? And so they compiled a list of about 10. So this other guy then took some text and printed it out, everything else being equal, but in these different typefaces. And then he tested it with a group of several thousand people, and it wasn't even close. that one typeface stood out from all the rest, as that people believed the words more likely if it was presented in this other typeface. And so they did that, and I'm blanking on the typeface. How in the world can I do that? It's like forgetting your mother's name. It's
You're thinking about it too hard, and now you can't remember it.
Jeez Louise, this is not,
Look
day
it
is
up.
not starting out good. No, I know, it's Baskerville, John Baskerville. So it's Baskerville, and so it wasn't even close. The words presented in that typeface, most people thought it was more believable. I was like, wow, isn't that fascinating, right? And so if you take that idea and apply it to the level of detail that we're talking about here in the form of the thing, it does have an effect. And so it's not about necessarily, we can take that idea and expand it to just, well, it's a hardcover book versus a soft cover book versus something stapled together, right? We can do it in that way. But we could also say it's doesn't matter whether it's a hardcover book or it's a stapled book or anything in between. It's the craftsmanship and the attention to detail that's put into each and every one of those that ultimately makes the difference. It's that attention to detail. And that's why I said earlier that I totally agree with Jasmine's reasoning there. I don't see any problem with it. But it sounds like we're then relegating other forms of binding as lesser. And I honestly don't believe that that's true. I think matching them up according to what your overall intent is number one. And then the second part of it is the effort at craftsmanship and attention to detail that you pay regardless of which method of binding or any of the other decisions that you would make. I think that's what it is. It's those two things, matching up and the attention to detail, craftsmanship. Two really good questions there for us to think about, you guys. Good. Taylor, how about you?
Hello.
There we go.
Okay, just make sure it's working. Okay, so I think the purpose of the book, to like create the book, is like, in a way, to bring like old teachings of, I guess, like native tribes, and how they relate to like the modern day. And then the message I'm trying to create is like the beauty of life, how we are a part of the earth, what we're doing to destroy it, and then like in the end, like how we can become like one with, like in unity with the earth. So that's kind of like the message I'm trying to portray. It's just like the 3 steps of the beginning, what is happening, and then what we have to do in order for it to remain together.
I like the way you kind of summed that up. You said that it's kind of like the 3 steps. Have you already started interpreting that in your layout?
The text, yes, is broken into, the text is actually broken up into 5 different sections of my book. Okay. And each section has its own little, I guess it has like an intro of like what's going to happen into each section. Each section has its own, not idea, but like the steps I said, like it's a breakdown of how to get there.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with my question. And so, but you said you had like 5 sections. Mm-hmm. So I guess my suggestion is going to be, if you've decided that your overall big picture of the project is to present this, these ideas in 3 steps, mm-hmm. then your book should be
3 steps.
divided into 3 in some way, right? Mm-hmm. So that's going to reinforce this overall message that you want to get across. Because you could otherwise have, well, this is the overall message that I want to get across. It's kind of like 3 steps. And then in the book, I'm not picking that up because it, you know, that's, so it's making that connection between the overall big picture view and the decisions that I make in terms of how I treat the book.
Okay.
Okay, I think the way you voice that is really nice. So see how you can interpret that into your layout.
Okay.
Okay, Mackenzie?
So with the actual look and feel for my book, I mean, I think that's one of the primary things that I need to focus on because I do have that element of the animation in it. So mine is going to have to be a soft bound book, not hardcover, dudes. And it doesn't mean it's, you know, cheaper, but it's, you know, yeah, screw you guys. So, you know, anyways, you know, getting that right look and feel, the right paperweight. I mean, I know that my current stock from home, this is 20-pound paper, so I think I need to go a little bit higher than that in the end game. But I've also been looking at like environmentally friendly recycled paper, that kind of stuff, and giving it not that hardbound, but that soft bound sort of manuscript importance to it as well.
Nice. Several things there. One is I like that you stood up for your crew in terms of the binding. And you said it better than what I was trying to say. Is that it's not about one binding being more valuable than other. It's how we match it up and how we attention to detail. Okay, so we got that. I think that the other side, though, of your choices is that it's a tactile way of connecting with the message that you want us to get to. So if it's a closer association with the earth as natural material growing things, you know, that, well, then why isn't my book, what can I make my book look more earthy, for lack of a better word, you know? It is that kind of thing when we talk about type, when we say that an old style Roman typeface has a, generally speaking, a warmer, more inviting, old school kind of feel. So it's built off that idea of tradition. It's and a slower pace, perhaps, for good reasons. And it's that connection to the earth kind of thing. Okay. Now, on the other hand, does that mean that stuff that represents modern life and contemporary life, is that now bad? No, doesn't mean that at all. It's just a different look for different reasons, and we match those up. That's the pairing part. So if I stay with the connection to the earth idea, then, and I also said something then about old style Roman typefaces. So it might give us a clue to look, okay, if that's the overall feeling I want, then I don't have to look at the 10 billion typefaces that are out there to choose from. I can instead look at the ones that I already know are going to, as a category, be leaning in the direction of my overall goal. So if we were only talking about serif typefaces, then I'm going to be looking at old style Roman typefaces. Possibly script typefaces. I'm not going to be looking at those ones that have a more contemporary stylish feel. Okay, so that's an example of connecting the two thoughts. Hatsine?
So I'm going along with what the message of what I'm trying to create. And from the very beginning, when you had first talked to us about the project and said like, what's our purpose? My purpose was always to inform, but with like an emotional impact.
Great.
And I was really looking closely at the words and what they said and what the articles were saying, or the article that I was using was saying. And for me, because there was a lot of emotional feeling in the article itself that tied back to Chief Seattle's words. So I felt like it's informative in the way that it's kind of letting people know, like, this is still happening with the uranium in the mining to the Navajo tribe and like the impact that it has. And there's a lot of pain in their words and a lot of kind of almost like a reminiscence in both. And so it was, my way of doing it was like breaking it out into the dialogue, but then I really spent a lot of time on my typeface, both my typefaces, and trying to find something, I guess, that felt that was going along with the focus on the readability, but also like feeling of like a timeless kind of, like, I guess, an older feeling. They're both, the two typefaces I did use for the title and for the rest of the text, I guess kind of connected in that way because they're both kind of older feeling, but they're readable. And I felt like it kind of allowed the words to really, I guess, shine through that impact of the emotional words that I was choosing. And that's another reason why I chose to do the watercolor as well, because I felt like the watercolor kind of really tied into the words about the water's, spillage and colors that they're talking about in the words, both through Chief Seattle and also through my article, because they were talking about the yellow water runoff or whatever. And so that's kind of why I chose it. So I felt like it kind of had like maybe like an older feel, and that connected both of the things together in a way, even though like, I guess one's more modern words, but because it's still happening and they're still like reminiscent, I guess, of like what has happened in the past and how it hasn't changed for them. They're still seeing this impact. So I guess that's pretty much it. I will say that I am wanting to do some sort of like environmentally friendly paper because of that reason too. So.
Okay, very good. You've done a lot of thinking about this overall big concept pretty much all along. I think that one of the things, and that is influencing your decisions. And one of the things that I'm trying to teach you guys is to do this kind of thinking about your design decisions. And I believe the other day I mentioned that, okay, so I do that here when I'm in school, and then I get out there and I get hired, and all of a sudden I've got to do a similar project, and I have 2 hours rather than 2 weeks to do it. And so to make it happen, what do I do and what do I let go of in terms of what guides me as a designer? This is a very difficult decision. It's a personal decision. And my encouragement for you is to try and ingrain these kinds of things into just the way you approach design. So it's not something you even have to consciously think about anymore. It's just, that's the way you do it. You always pay attention to detail. You always think of the big picture. You connect it through, you do pay attention to minutia like the correct dashes and that stuff. But you make, as opposed to feeling the pressure of a deadline that seems impossible. And so now to get there, well, I'm just going to type it in and whatever comes up, and that's going to be it. And try not to do that. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring us back to this big picture thing discussion a little bit today. And Hatsine, I think you've been doing that along. I think all of you have a version of this being a natural part of what you do. I just want to encourage you to continue to do that, I guess, or add to it. So the way you described it is nice. Oh, I know, the thing that's unusual about yours is you've got Native American people speaking both from our time as well as a long ago time. And so there's that connection between it. I think, well, I haven't read everything, but I believe all the words in there are Native American voices, correct? Yes. Okay. So that does influence the style. It's not like, well, we've got a Native American voice here, and then I've got a white voice saying something else or doing the opposite of what should have been done. You know, it's not that contrast. It's a unity. It's a unified thing across time that has universal approach or importance to all of us. You know, it's not, and this is where I think the tricky part is, because it's all Native American voice, the urge can be to make it, the document, look Native American. And the problem with that is that then any non-Native American person is not going to really pay attention, because it's going to look like, oh, that's a Native American thing for Native Americans. It doesn't have anything to do with me, and that's a problem. So what we're trying to do is take this individual and group voice that happen to be Native American, that were smart enough to realize the importance of these things. They wrote them down. The rest of us just haven't paid attention to them. And so how do we get, and I have to say it's mostly white audience, has not paid attention to this information and needs to wake up. So that's part of that big picture thing. So how we represent the voices that do have a common thread, that it is Native American, but not represented in a way that it now overall appears like, oh, it's only intended for Native Americans. That's the trick. This is a hard problem with yours.
Yeah, well, and that's why I was trying to pick something that was like a typeface that looked classic, but not, I guess, because like one of them has a little bit more of like a, I guess almost like a 20s feel to it. I guess the name of it, the title. And I was trying to pick something that was like, for the rest of the text, something that was like timeless and classic looking, but not, I was trying to stay away from any type of like, I guess, Native American motifs and anything that looked like that. So that it didn't have that, but I still wanted to bring in the natural part of it through like the earth with the watercolor, because it kind of tied in with what they were saying. So at the same time, it's like a like keeping the feeling there, but without any Native American motif, if that makes any sense.
It does, exactly. That's exactly the right approach. This is we can have other books that are about Native Americans. That isn't, we can have other books that are about Irish people. That's not the point here. And we can have Irish people that are equally attendant to the environment. But it's not about that. It's about the earth. And so the way you said that, that's the right approach. Good. Brian, how about you?
So I think for mine, I'll answer the first question. Kind of what was the purpose of the assignment? That was the first question, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, something along those lines. I'd say mostly how to treat different type or different stories and combine them into one and unify them all. So, and also like different eras. So Chief Seattle, and then finding a way to combine that and make it similar for a bigger story in terms of, just like the end game for the book.
Good. I think you've also been thinking about how to, this connection for quite some time. I think you've hit on another unique approach here with getting these acceptance speeches. Did you remember them already? It seemed like you got on them really quick. Did you remember them and being impressed by them when you first heard them?
Yeah, I remember the DiCaprio one and then Joaquin Phoenix's speech. Those two I had remembered already. And then when I read Chief Seattle's, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to give it like a different kind of way to contrast or like complement each other through like celebrities in their speeches. Yeah,
that's a really good connection. I think that it's a unique connection. So the way you described it, okay, your purpose then of bringing together these contemporary voices that are kind of giving us contemporary warnings, and they're speaking from a public forum where they've earned that because they're entertainers, they're actors. They haven't earned that place because they're necessarily, I don't know, an environmentalist.
Yeah.
But because they are famous, and then we do this a lot. Then we tend to say that people are, well, because they're good at this one thing that I really like, they'll naturally be really good, and I will believe them about something else. But there's a danger in that. I don't think that's a danger with your project, but there's a danger in that in general for us.
Yeah.
I think that when people that have that attention use it for good purpose, that's a very important thing to do. It's a responsible thing to do. I'm glad that they do it. I'm glad that those guys, when they were being honored for their work in as an actor, took the time to speak about things that are ultimately more important. And so that by you remembering them, that's pretty impressive. I think that, and then they have already set the stage for allowing their voice to be counted on the side of, we need to do something about what we're doing to the earth. They've already done that by saying those words. So you are extending their original intention. You're extending their popularity. Their voice is going to have even, the words that they already said, because of their skill as an actor, is going to have even greater importance, because you are, it's like you're reposting it, right?
Yeah.
They already posted it out there in their speech. You're reposting it so it has more followers. Kind of like that analogy. I might use that often. But truly, I think that's a good thing. Okay, so let me do this with you, and then we'll see if there's any more individual questions, because I went off that road for us a little bit this morning on purpose. I think that you're, in general, you guys all have good individual directions. That's the way it feels to me. You'll have to let me know if that's not true. Today I tried to speak a little bit more, have you do things that helped you see the big picture of the object when that happens. What do you envision that to be? And therefore, what decisions do you want to make now that will help that end result be the most effective version that it can be? That's why we're bringing it up now. And the other thing is this, it started this attention, or at least our focus talk about attention to detail. We've spoken about that for little examples along the way. An easy example would be attention to the correct dashes, orphans and widows, diminuendo, that kind of stuff. But it extends to the things of the object, the choice of paper. What does it feel like? What color is it? How is it bound? Does it have a decal edge or a cut edge? All of those things. So it's a tactile thing. It has not only size, but it has weight. It has texture. It has all of those characteristics of an object that, if thought about ahead of time, you can make decisions that make every single one of those add to making your message that much better. Okay, I get that. So the key to making it happen is first be real clear in your own mind, what is the ultimate message you want to create? What is the ultimate feeling that you want to create? If you know that, then you will be able to make decisions about all these little details. If it's fuzzy and just kind of floating around in your head, then you will miss opportunities along the way, perhaps, or not take full advantage of some of them. It's not that you won't be thinking about details, but you'll only be thinking about details from the layout standpoint, or from the diminuendo kind of reasoning, which is, there are good reasons, but it's not the whole thing. Because today we're talking about concept and connecting concept to these practical decisions. Okay, so that's what, have that spinning in there too as you go forward. Okay, so let me see. I didn't get to talk to each of you individually when you were in the breakout rooms. Is there anyone that, and we can do this in a couple ways. Is there a question that any of you have actually that you'd like me to talk a little bit about, or some step that you're at? Everybody's feeling pretty good about this? Okay, all right. Then I also want to say, if any of you that I didn't get to talk about your project in the breakout groups, if any of you want to hang out here a little bit longer, and I can do that with you, and you're all welcome to stay. But I also am kind of mindful of the time here, which I haven't been in the past. So if you guys, I'll ask one more time. Is there anything else you'd like me to talk about? Okay, then those of you that are ready to go, I will see you next time. Those of you that would like to hang out a little bit longer for an individual thing, that we can do that as well.
Would it be okay if I sent you screenshots later?
Screenshots are great. Sorry, thank you for reminding me this. I didn't realize for our other class, and also for you guys that have longer PDF files, that's fine for sending them in on the final when we're all done here. That's what I do want you to send in. But it's actually a problem for me when they're in the draft version. It just takes longer for me to open them up and do that. So screenshots are a really good way to go. Okay. All right, then if you guys are ready to go, again, I'll see you next time. Those of you who want to stick around for a question or two, welcome to do that as well.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So for, what is it? Not aesthetic. Animation? Not animation. Illustration.
Illustration? Uh-huh.
Lines and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be anything like too outlandish or anything. Just like, because like I'm overthinking like how to design it, like how to put like illustrations and whatnot in. Like I keep thinking like it needs to be like heavily illustrated or something like that.
No, the exact opposite.
Okay.
You might have absolutely no illustrations in here.
Okay.
It's a typographic book.
Oh, okay.
The emphasis is on the type.
All right, okay.
Now, the other side, though, is, well, emphasis on the type doesn't say no illustrations. It just means the emphasis and the way the message is communicated needs to be through the type, because we're trying to learn how to do that. But you, and I think, you know, most people are visual people in some respect. So I tend to believe that graphics or images of some sort do help. It just, it can't be, the balance here it shouldn't be even close. It's mostly a book that we read.
Okay.
The information, but we can support those words with illustrations. Now, some practical reasons for having illustrations in there would be, well, maybe I want to have a spot illustration, a small one or something, to signify this is the beginning of the book. Or maybe I want to use them as separators between sections of the book, so they're on left-hand page, full pages. Maybe I want to have not pictures, but I want to have symbols. So I just have graphic symbols in there. Maybe I instead use photographs because that's appropriate for my book. You know, so it's that kind of thing. Mackenzie has a delicate balance here. She's decided to go with very active images as a flip book.
Yeah.
Nice idea. That's a nice idea, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. Like she, I think it was on Snapchat, where she like did like a quick little demonstration of like how it works.
Yeah. Super cool. Yeah, she's worked out the sequence quite well there. What the danger here, however, is that if because that is interactive and everything else, that that goes in the hierarchy from something that's supportive to the main thing. And we can't have that. So we have to have that animation be supportive of the main message, which is delivered by the way the type is treated. That's the, each of you have unique little problems that you have to solve. And for Mackenzie, that is one for her.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great idea. I'm not diminishing that idea at all. It just means that now it's almost like her typographic game now has to go up a couple notches too,
Right.
to remain at the lead. Yeah. So with illustrations, it is not an illustration book. It is mostly type. You can have illustrations of any style. They can be symbols, photographic, paintings, drawings. They can be totally made by you. They can be made by somebody else. They can be stock images. They can be, anything. It's just that that's the way you can use images. They just have to be supportive of the main message. Brian, to a certain degree, is real close to the images being of equal value as the type. He's not right now, but he's not totally finished, but he's closer. And so how he uses those images so that they don't overwhelm the story told by the text, he has to watch out for that one. Does that help a little bit with the amount of illustration?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. All right.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Taylor.
So
Hi.
what do we think?
So I had sent you, I think it was last Thursday, I sent you drafts. I don't know if you were able to open them because I did send it as a PDF.
I was thinking of you. So I started going through everything, and it was you and Jasmine and Brian. So the three of you sent me PDFs, multi-page PDFs, which again is the way I want you to, and it's what I asked for or said to you that would be an option here. Not realizing that Canvas makes it a whole lot harder.
Okay.
And my problem here is that I'm pretty much doing this all day long, and I end up not having any time to simply do that. And if they're if you do screenshots and send to me, then I can much more easily give you a little comment back right away.
Okay.
Okay.
I
So if you
probably
don't mind doing that, that would be good.
Okay. I also wanted to ask, so I don't know if you remember my original cover. It was like the mountains. It was like black and white
Yes.
mountains, like the
Yes.
sketch. So I took that out and
Okay.
I put something else. But now I'm trying to think if I should go back to that, because after you talking to Gavin about like the images not being with the same, like the text is more important than the images. My cover right now is like, what I wanted to do was kind of a collage of pictures that I've taken of like nature, just see like different elements of the earth to like put my whole book, that like puts the whole book into like perspective, like what it is and like what it's gonna go into. But since the pictures are not as important as the text, I'm trying to think if I should go back to the original. Would you like to see the cover that I'm thinking of?
Well, I understand this one, because you've got some good pictures, no doubt, and I think I've seen a few of them that yeah. So I know that you've got some good ones there of nature and being out, and in the mountains and stuff, and did you happen to see Brian's book?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to try to describe this one thing to you and see if that's helpful. So he has some pictures that behind the text that are full page grayscale, but they're coming from pictures of things. They're really, really light and faint, and then they go all the way out to the bleed off the edges, so we're not seeing the entire image.
Okay.
And in the breakout room, we were having a little discussion about, well, should we be able to see exactly what those images are or not? And we ended up deciding that no, because the overall feeling of those images is that, well, they're organic images, so that goes along with the earthy direction. And they are light enough right now that they're not making it hard to read the text that's over the top, which could be an issue if they were more clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so keeping it as images that come from nature, but now are treated in a minimal way. And in this particular minimal way meant bleeding the images so they're cropped and changing them, taking the color all out and just it's a grayscale, and then making that gray value really light.
Mm-hmm.
So all three of those things are lessening the impact of us knowing exactly what the picture is of.
Okay.
What it does on a good way is that we can still get the sense that it's organic, that it's still nature, but we don't know what it is anymore. And that's a good thing, because if we did, it would mean that it's communicating that thing more importantly or higher in priority than it needs to.
Okay.
Okay, so that's, I'm sorry you didn't get to see that. Maybe you can ask Brian if you can see that, but that I think is an example of what we're talking about. It doesn't mean you have to make them gray value, grayscale and bleed them off, but that's an example. Another possible example is, well, I don't make the collage out of it because the collage is emphasizing the pictures themselves, which sounds like a good artistic thing to do photographically, but maybe not here. But instead, maybe I take not the collage, but I take one of the pictures at a time. I find an area of it and I make it a spot illustration that is, and I use it as a separator or the beginning of the story or however it fits into your layout. And I might have 3 or 4 of those.
Okay.
You know, but now they're small in size. They probably are still cropped. And they may or may not have color in them, but they're also serving a practical purpose as a separator in the story. So that's, again, helping the readability.
Okay. And then did you see the layout, or did Canvas allow you to?
Yeah, that was the thing. I got the spinning wheel.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, I'll send some screenshots. So for, you know how I said I broke it up in 5 sections?
Can you share your screen right now?
Yes. Yeah. Let me see. Okay. Ignore that. Okay. So here. So okay. So here's the text, and I have it on beige. I have the background color is beige, but
Okay.
I want to use.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to do like the background color beige, but I want to do beige paper. So in order to like represent that, I did the beige color.
Got it. Okay.
And then for the section, the breakups of the sections, this is what I was thinking of doing, like a symbol to do. But then again, like that's putting like the images. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I had an idea of doing like the symbols for each introduction of each section. And then for like the blank page on the other side would be either a quote or just the little sentence as an introduction to like what the section was going to go into. And then, yeah. But
okay, I think I may have been confusing you here, and I don't mean to, but I think what you're doing right here is fine. I think there's some good things happening.
Okay.
I think that, let me start with the easy ones, like the beige colored paper. So that could be a BFK Reeves off-white paper, which would work great for the way you're describing what's going on. So if that's the color of the paper, then the tree color is probably that same color. Right? So that's what the tree is, that color, and then the blue-gray that's around it, that's what you print.
Yes.
Okay, so I would just sample the color that you've used on the spread above and put that on the tree.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm also saying that the tree that you have here, I think, is a good way. Can I see some of the other images that you're using for separators besides the tree?
Yes. I only have one other one, and that one's just a glyph that I found. Well, for my book, for my type book that I did last semester, for type
Yeah,
1,
yeah. Uh-huh.
I did the text or the font, the typeface, Cerevic.
Yes.
And one of the glyphs that I found was like a sword. So I thought that that would represent like destruction for like the earth. But I wanted to do, I have just a sword right now, but I wanted to do that with like an illustration of like the earth on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
To have that as the, but I kind of questioning whether I should have just like color for each section. Like the color is like what breaks up the book, if that makes sense.
It does.
So like each, yeah.
Yes.
But then I'm also getting the feeling that the picture with the title and the number looks kind of like a magazine. So I'm not sure. Like
it does.
Yeah.
It does. Everything you said, yes, I agree with.
Yeah.
I think that. So let's start with it conceptually. First, be clear in your head, what is the kind of book you want to create? Do you want to create a magazine-looking book or no? And so this is an easy one, right? If it's, well, yeah, I do want to create a magazine-looking kind of book, so then that means the look that you've got here on these separators is totally appropriate. On the other hand, you might say, no, actually, now that you said it that way, no, I'm not after making a magazine look. I'm after a different kind of look. So in that case, then the look that you have currently here is not the right one. Okay, because you're going to make other decisions as well, and the two just won't work together as cohesively as they might. So that's the thing. It's not that this is not bad layout. This is not bad design by itself. Mm-hmm. When we decide whether it's the right choice or not is how it fits into this big picture concept and how it fits into its placement as its practical reason for being there, and as a separator it does, and the style. So does the style fit in with your overall style, which again leads to making the message you want it to be. Mm-hmm. So think of it that way first, and that will be a big guide for whether or not you keep this tree or not, or keep the dagger or not, or sword, and so forth. Okay, so that's one thing to think about. Let's say that you have made the decision that I do want to create a magazine kind of book. Therefore, this basic treatment of the separators is totally in line with what I should do. So the next question is, does the symbol of the tree on here and the sword on the other one, are they what we're going to call parallel construction? And usually we might hear that term in writing. Does that make you, have you heard that term before? I've
heard of it, but can you explain? Like,
absolutely. So it's where we have different things, and in writing, parallel construction would be it's kind of like the correct tense.
Oh, okay.
You know, if I'm speaking in past tense here, then I need this next sentence needs to be also past tense. I can't mix them up because then they're not parallel. I've constructed the sentences either with the same time period in mind or different ones. And so by having different ones, well, that's going to be confusing. So I have parallel construction. It's used for other things as well, but that's my easy example for within a sentences. Visually, it also applies. So I need to have a similar kind of a stylistic treatment of all the images that are all on separator pages. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this one, so we look at this one, and this image takes up most of the page. It is, it looks like it has a level of detail that we can see. It's not just a silhouette. And what else? In single color. It's a flat image because we don't see overlapping things. Okay, so those are some things that come to mind about describing this image. Okay, now let's go to the dagger. I keep calling it dagger, sword. Okay, so now describing this image, we might not be using the same words, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one is a solid color, so that's similar. But this one is the color is black. It's not another color, so that kind of shades it a little bit differently right there. We don't see levels of detail on it like we did with the leaves on the tree. It takes up a much smaller space, size in the overall page than the other one did. So what we're doing is we're discovering some things that are similar in the way that the two images are treated. They're different images, but how they're treated. And we're also finding some things that are not treated the same way. And so we want to do is ideally have all of the images that are going to be used as illustrations on separator pages to have the same visual voice.
Okay.
Okay. It's a hierarchy thing. They are also meant to be read as symbols. They're meant to be read, like you said, we want to read this sword as a symbol of the destruction of the earth. We don't want this to read as, oh, now we're going to read about medieval times.
Yeah.
Okay. So to make that happen, that means that all of the images do have to have a common voice. And then we will, by the clues that we get from seeing the very first one, that's how we'll read everything after it.
Okay.
So that first section, it's not literally about just a single tree or trees only. It's, it's about nature.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reading the image of the tree as not a specific tree, not only about the topic of trees, but as a symbol for nature. So that clue now tells us that this image, if it's treated in the same way, I will also read as a symbol. If it's treated differently, I won't necessarily, oh, this must be something different. No, that's right. That's the way I would think about it. So being consistent across those is the main thing. We might also say the color. So that make sure that those background colors also have, they're like from the same palette.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you use the color harmony list, that's an easy way to do that. But you could use any color theory to unify across there. Let's say they're all, let's say it's a split complement, so that those colors relate because of color theory as split complementary colors. Have you got, are there 3 sections or 4?
There's 5.
Yes, but remember going back to that main overall concept. Yeah, so if it's 3, then we can do a split complementary choices for those 3 colors, and that would make them parallel constructed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when I say like the three sections or 3 main like ideas,
yes,
the 5 sections that break it up, kind of lay out the 3, because the first part is finding like our connection to the earth and like how we are one, or we are a part of it. And then the second one is like the family tree of the earth. So saying like Chief Seattle's writing, saying like, my father said, my ancestor said, so putting all that together. And then the next one is destruction of like what has happened to like the family. And then 4th one is the changes that have to be made. And then 5 is finding unity within the earth, like to put us all in one. So it is 3 parts, but the 5 kind of break it up to make it the 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, the way you just described it is it's really not about 3 sections at all. It's about the unity across those 5 different things.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole reason for doing this at all is to just know what the vision for the final thing is and what that final message, the main general message is. So why I'm picking on it is because when you first described it when we were all together, you said 3 sections, you know, and then you said those 3 sections are told by these 5 different parts. That could be true, but if we put the 3-section thing as a main goal of the whole project, then I have to be able to really sense that within the book.
Okay.
And now when you described it here to me now, you described it a little more thoroughly about the 5 things. You listed off these 5 things. So now it makes much more sense that the you have these divided into 5 parts, not 3. Okay. But then when you but now you have to change that vision in the end perhaps a little bit, or make them match up more closely. So you're telling the story as it's happened so far, and how like it's historic to now and projecting into the future a little bit, right?
Okay.
I mean, isn't that what you were telling me? Like,
Yes.
This is what's happened. This is what we haven't done to correct things. This is what needs to be done, and this is how it can all tie together.
Yes.
Okay, so those 5 parts now, that's the story. That's the purpose of your book, of telling that story, the connection between those 5 things. Okay. All right, now let's jump back to the visual representation of it a little bit longer. So with the images, then as you're using them as separators, great. They just need to be a consistent visual voice. The other thing, if we get back to ways of diminishing their importance, one might be, well, they're all silhouetted, or they all have the same level of detail, and that might be determined by the object that we pick. Silhouetted in black has a different feel than silhouetted in, let's say, the complementary color of whatever the background is, or whether it's gray rather than black, or whether it's white rather than black. So think about those choices also, as it impacts the visual importance. It's, you know, yeah, there's a lot to think about there with images.
Okay. And then for the text, I had, I don't know if hold on, I'll go 2 pages. So I can just go up here. So for the authors page,
yes,
I put like from the thoughts of, and then like I started with Chief Seattle, and then like the other authors that I'll be using.
Okay. I see one little thing here to mention. So the bottom 3, from Melissa, Ben, and Michael, the way that you have the leading above and below their names is correct. But if you look closely at the one for Dr. Michael Leithman, Leithman. Okay. See how the leading is the same above as well as below? So what that ends up doing is it's confusing. Are Leithman's words the ones above him or below him?
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay, so in the 3 authors that you have below there, you've done it correctly. You have more leading above their name, therefore the name groups very easily with the words that go with that person, because there's less space between them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's just something to tweak. You've done their different typefaces for their words in each of them, and you've also applied that to their names. And then you have another typeface up at the top that says "from the thoughts of," and you have "from the thoughts of" flush left, but everything else centered. So we need to be a little bit more consistent here. So one would be, since everything else is centered, try making "from the thoughts of" also centered on the page.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be, now we could go the other direction. We could say from the thoughts of remains flush left, and everything else now becomes flush left as well. So we have to keep the same alignment across everything, whatever that is on the page.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Spell chief correctly. I-E. And then as you look at other things in here, since we are centering, you can easily return and get rid of hyphenated words like family. You know, you can turn that one. And I would bring the word the down as well, because it, you know, starting a sentence with just the word the on that line would be kind of awkward. So I'd return the fam down to the next line. There we go. There we go. All right. So that's helping the readability. Now we could argue that, yeah, can you bring his down?
Yeah.
There you go. It's that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay. Now what else here? Back to the typeface. So we've got a different typeface than everything else on the words from the thoughts of, and then all the other typefaces vary because they are from different voices. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense to me, but then it would also make sense that from the thoughts of belong to the same type family that's used for the display type of the book, as well as the folio. Okay, so that becomes its own set or typeface.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's another option here. The other option that you could do is each of the names of the authors could be just from this display type group. So in other words, from the same typeface family as the words from the thoughts of. Mm-hmm. They could be that, and then their actual words are in the different typeface. So that's another look to see. I don't know if it's necessarily better. It's just
I originally put the names of the people in the typeface to make it easier to distinguish what voice was which.
Yes. Did it not
so
work?
That was where I was coming from for that. But I can see how that will.
Yeah. So here, just for an example, what typeface is on from the thoughts of?
I was still working with the other typeface.
The default? Or?
I'm trying to think where is it? Oh, it's Cerevic.
Okay, so if you put that one on the names of all the people, mm-hmm. That's the other suggestion I have to take a look at. Now, okay, so I don't know if that's going to be better or not, but it would act as a way to separate the different voices there, mm-hmm. And then it will be obvious why the words underneath them change typeface. So it's a thought.
Okay.
But there was something, the last thing. So where you're blinking right now, you have 2 dots there, which I think are 2 periods. And what you really want is an ellipsis. So an ellipsis is option semicolon.
For which one?
See where up at the top from the word.
Oh.
So yes. Delete those 2 dots. Mm-hmm. Okay, and instead option semicolon. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's an ellipsis. And then make sure that you only have single spaces between sentences. Mm-hmm. Like down under Melissa's words there.
Yeah, I can see that this is
Are those double spaced?
This spacing looks different than the space above it, so.
Well, just click in front of the capital A there for a minute. Okay, and delete once. No, just click right there. Now delete key. And again. Yeah, see, it's double spaced. That's correct. Now, up in the first line, the same thing. So you should only have single spaces between sentences. So you might have to look in some of your other ones as well. Like, in fact, you might have to look under all of them. It's just more noticeable in some. Mm-hmm. Okay, so single space between sentences.
So it's single. single space like after a period? Is it
Yes.
okay?
Between sentences, after a period, after a question mark, it doesn't matter what the punctuation is, but
Mhm.
between sentences, there should only be a single space.
Okay.
Okay, now
I'm
you
used
might
to
have
doing
learned
2
that.
because
You might have learned that to double space because you, way back, I don't know, in grade school maybe, but and that's because that's back in ancient times when we didn't have computers and just had typewriters. The only way to create more space between sentences was to hit the space key twice.
Mhm.
So it's amazing to me that there are still people out there teaching double spacing, because it's easily a 50-year-old thing that we don't do anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it's not your fault. But as a topographer, we're constantly making these decisions about space.
Mhm.
Therefore, unnecessary wide spacing really jumps out as a mistake, and it does make a difference on the typeface, but whether it's more pronounced or not. But on this particular typeface right here that we're on right now, the Cervec, what is it called?
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Cervec.
that one is real easy to see when there's too much space between sentences. Now, and other typefaces, it might not be as noticeable, but it's still correct to only have one space between the sentences. Okay, and that has probably become a habit for you, unfortunately, to double space. You're typing along, you hit the space bar twice, and you type another sentence. So you have to break that habit.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. And I also wanted to ask you, so the text is all, so I decided to do the text Cerevic because I have so many people that I'm working with.
Yeah.
I did Cerevic for my type book for type 1, and it has multiple fonts.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be a good, does this text, or does the text look fine of like, it's able to be like readable and everything?
It's a great question.
Okay.
Because we are faced with this constantly, right? What's the right typeface that I should use? So some people say, well, I'm going to pick this typeface because it's my favorite typeface. I use it for almost everything. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
So they make that choice of typeface regardless of what the subject matter is. It's just their favorite typeface. So that's the way some people choose it. Other people constantly choose different typefaces because they see a new typeface that comes out and they like it, so they want to use that one. So they're very swayed by what's the current fad or new typeface, and then they use it. I think that's not a good decision. And then the third reason is to pick the text type for readability, and therefore that it has a variety of fonts in that typeface family to create different forms of emphasis. That's what you've done, okay? And then for display type, we pick a typeface that is more expressive of the overall mood, feeling of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So what you've got here is a good reason to pick the typeface Cerevic for the different voices, because we can vary the font there because of it. The weakness is that it is a sans serif typeface paired with a display typeface that is also sans serif.
Okay.
Okay, so what we want to do is make and again, I'm suggesting that on this page anyway, the from the thoughts of, that should then therefore probably be either a script, or a serif, or a unique typeface.
More display, yeah.
Yeah, and you're making that choice because that one is going to express the message more strongly, the feeling. express the feeling more strongly. Where the text that's the Sarovic is there for a practical reason. It's highly readable, and I can indicate different fonts.
Okay.
Okay, so that kind of thinking you can use on every project.
All right.
All right. So I guess the things that I would say on here, from what you're showing me, to think about would be changing the display typeface to one that includes from the thoughts of, and that typeface be either a serif one, a script one, or a novelty unique one that really captures the feeling of your piece.
Okay.
Okay. And then possibly look at the names of the people also being in that typeface because it's display type.
Mm-hmm.
And you might do that and then decide, no, I don't like that. I like the name to be the same typeface as the words underneath. That's fine too.
Okay.
So what you have currently there with that is fine.
Okay.
And then absolutely check on the double spaces of sentences and correct that.
Okay.
I see down there under Ben Paulus,
Mm-hmm.
the 19th to the 22nd. How would we read those words? How would you say them out loud?
19th to, so change it to 2.
No, change it to an N dash. So when you read the word to, when you see that kind of dash, it is not a hyphen. That's not a hyphenated word. So it needs to be an N dash. Okay. So are you on the Mac or PC? I forgot.
A Mac.
Mac. So it's option dash. Okay, and then you would also find it in the glyphs palette.
Okay.
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 Remember that when you get to the printing stage of things, to delete this off-white background, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other suggestion I was making there is maybe the shades of the, since we're printing on a colored paper, that the illustrations that are silhouetted, that those are this color.
Okay.
Because it's the color of the paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that the silhouettes of like the out.
The tree, making the tree and the sword this color.
Oh, okay. I see. All right. Okay. All right. I'll make the edits and then I'll send you screenshots.
Okay, that actually sounds pretty good.
Okay. All right. I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. So thank you.
You're welcome, Taylor. Yeah. All right. I guess I'll see you later then, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.